Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Obviously, this year so far has been a lot of Battlefield 6 versus Call of Duty, and specifically now Black Ops 7. And recently there was an expert analysis that dropped that Insider Gaming reported on that detailed some very interesting information about the ongoing battle that is Battlefield versus Call of Duty. This article is titled Black Ops 7 has already beaten Battlefield 6, and it's because of autopilot purchasing, analyst says. Now, you hear that title and you go, whoa, wait a minute. We saw that Battlefield 6 beta. Those numbers were absolutely nuts versus Call of Duty's, which are not looking that great right now. So how has Black Ops 7, a game that has had a ton of negative, talk around it so far, already beaten a game that has had maybe the most positive talk of a Battlefield title in years, maybe even ever? Well, there is a point made here that unfortunately does back up Call of Duty's very stupid, we're too big to fail statement. Even if they are too big to fail, saying it out loud is not a good look here. But let's go through this article because there are some interesting points raised. I do want to say, above all here though, the only real competition between Battlefield and Call of Duty is solely between the executives there and like the shareholders, right? This is not a community competition here. I mean, some people will make it out to be because they're a huge fan of one franchise versus the other, but ultimately we win if both of these games are good. And these games get good when one is really good to start and the other has to react. And that's sort of been the situation already, where Battlefield 6 has launched with a ton of hype, at least the beta and all the announcements so far has had a ton of hype around it. And for the first time in a long time, Call of Duty is on the defensive. They actually have to respond a little bit. We've already seen this sort of take place with them canceling Carry Forward. That was a huge criticism and complaint surrounding the Black Ops 7 reveal, and enough pressure of Battlefield really doing great in terms of pre-orders and sales numbers, the community being really upset with Black Ops 7 and the idea of Carry Forward. That caused Call of Duty to actually walk back that idea, cancel it entirely, and for the first time in some time concede to the community. Now, there's still a lot more pressure we as a community have to apply on COD, but Battlefield 6 ultimately is helping us with this, and if that in the end causes Black Ops 7 to be a better game, that's a win. And then COD fans win, Battlefield fans win, and when these games are more competitive and they're both good and they constantly have to one-up each other, we ultimately win as gamers here. So the true competition, this whole Battlefield versus Call of Duty thing, only really exists from like an executive standpoint. As players, as gamers, we just want the games to be good because that's going to be better for us in our time. But here's what we got in this article. Despite comments suggesting that Battlefield 6 will boot stomp Call of Duty this year, that was a comment made by former Blizzard president Mike Ybarra, many believe the impending conflict, again, it's only a real conflict from an executive standpoint, between Black Ops 7 and Battlefield has already been decided. In a recent report published as a part of the Alinea Analytics newsletter, it was suggested that Black Ops 7 will outsell Battlefield because of consumer habits and nothing more. So essentially, Call of Duty doesn't even have to be a good game and it's still going to outsell things. Like we saw this back with Infinite Warfare and Battlefield 1. Infinite Warfare sold poorly by COD standards, but it still sold a ton of games, enough to directly compete with Battlefield 1, which was credited as being one of the better Battlefields in quite some time at that time. So even COD's floor was right there with Battlefield's ceiling, basically. The report spoke of autopilot purchasing, with Call of Duty fans buying the new release year in, year out, even if they're not happy with it. So can Battlefield actually beat Call of Duty? Here's what's interesting though this year is that, one, we already know pre-order sales are down for Call of Duty, but we also haven't played the beta. That's when they're going to spike up a lot more because people ultimately get dragged into the FOMO of the early access only available through pre-orders or getting beta codes. And so pre-order numbers will spike for sure after COD Next, leading up to the beta, probably beyond the beta a little bit. But Battlefield's been crushing that. The thing though is that while Call of Duty might ultimately end up with more players on the game on day one, the sales comparison this year will be interesting to see because Game Pass is ultimately going to hurt the number of actual sales that Call of Duty gets, because you basically get the game anyways if you're a part of that Game Pass subscription, right? So the sales numbers are a little bit different there. Game Pass might make them look worse than they are, even though there's more players on than what the sales might report, if that makes any sense there. But this recent Alinea Insight newsletter discussed whether Battlefield 6 could stand firm as a COD killer, such an overused and abused term because we all know the only thing that's actually going to take out COD is COD itself. Seems like they might be trying to do so a little bit with some of their decisions so far, but this is a term that's been lobbied around for years. X-Defiant was supposed to be that. We know how that went. Alinia's expert analysis pulled a number out of the hat, revealing that 60% of the beta-based wishlisters on Battlefield 6 have played a Call of Duty game on Steam, which is a number that is big enough right out of the gate. The team admitted that the Battlefield 6 numbers could do better than any other game in franchise history. I fully expect this will raise the ceiling for Battlefield by a decent margin. Battlefield 6 absolutely will be the most successful Battlefield title in terms of sales numbers and day one players and things like that, but can that actually topple Black Ops 7? Here's what the official report from this analysis reads. COD is still dominant despite all of this. Its core audience still loves the game and buys it every year, and that isn't going to change just because Battlefield 6 is rad and tracking incredibly well. For many gamers, Call of Duty is an annual ritual. Tens of millions of players, many of them casual gamers, Call of Duty's biggest audience, buy the newest COD every year without hesitation. This autopilot purchasing habit is decades deep, and breaking it requires more than one awesome Battlefield release. Elliot went on to explain that players will buy it even if they complain about it, as they do. We all know people complain season in, season out, but then they're there for the next seasonal launch and all the trailers and all the hype with that. It also doesn't help Battlefield's situation that Black Ops 7 is guaranteed on Game Pass day one. When Black Ops 6 was released on Game Pass, it was the single biggest day for new subscriptions on the platform. I'm of the standpoint that Battlefield 6 doesn't need to beat Black Ops 7. I'm more comfortable with both games existing alongside each other, and even Battlefield's developers stress the same thing, which ultimately is true. They just both have to be good titles, so they push each other to be better. One doesn't have to win. The only people who truly ultimately care about that is the executives, is the shareholders. They serve unique demographics in a few ways, and I'll play both and make my mind which I prefer later. But there is a point being made here, and this is the whole too big to fail thing being exemplified. Call of Duty does sell because it's called Call of Duty. The NBA finals are going on, and you see the new commercial for the next Call of Duty game that debuts there. Like, that always used to be like a thing. I remember growing up with BO2, BO3, like all through that era, right? They see that, and it's a casual gamer who knows he enjoys COD gameplay. He goes, oh, the new one's coming out. They'll pick it up in October or November. They'll play it in their free time. Like, there is an autopilot audience on Call of Duty, and it's a very large one because they've been the biggest in this space for some time. Now, more dedicated gamers are gonna be more, aware of the overall stance of Call of Duty, how they've been very anti-player base, anti-community in recent years, and maybe look at Battlefield and say, hey, they're doing everything that I'm asking COD to do. Maybe I do check this out. So there will be plenty of crossover. There will be exclusive players on both sides here, but Battlefield ultimately does have an uphill battle. At the same time, though, this public perception of Call of Duty versus Battlefield, I think, is maybe a little bit overplayed and overhyped in a sense, because it doesn't matter. We want the games to be good. So Battlefield 6 might have a problem in terms of it maybe can't outsell Call of Duty or can't outnumber the player base here, but that doesn't mean it's bad or it's going to fail. It's probably going to be the most successful Battlefield title to date. But this is an interesting report because the too big to fail quote that Insider Gaming also reported on is one that has been going around basically every single comment section since it surfaced, and it will be used as ammunition, rightfully so, because it is it's a dumb thing to say out loud. It doesn't make you look good, but there is some validity to this according to some experts in the industry here. Curious your guys' thoughts on this down in the comments below. Are you going to be playing both? Do you care if one is larger than the other? Ultimately, if you're having fun on each of them or on one of them in specific. Of course, if you guys enjoyed the video, you want to share it around, a like rating is always seriously appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, you want to ensure you're always up to date with everything going on in Battlefield and Call of Duty, feel free to hit that subscribe button on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.